it'll scare the kids?
All it takes is one ride on Jurassic World VelociCoaster and you will be absolutely hooked. Universal's Islands of Adventure in Orlando, Florida just built what might be one of the greatest roller coasters in the world. The ride opens June 10th, so as of when this video is being made, about a month from now, and I had the opportunity to take several rides on it as part of the pass holder preview event, so I really got a good feel for the attraction, and I can safely say that yes, they have done it again. The theming was exactly what you expect from a Universal park, the ride experience was unparalleled, and there were surprises around every corner. Believe me, this is a ride that you want to get down and experience as soon as possible. So in this review, I'm going to be diving in deep. I'm going to talk about everything you need to know about this ride. So yes, careful for spoilers because I am not holding back here. We are gonna get detailed. Now, if you just broad things first, this is an Intamin multi-launch coaster. So the same manufacturer that made Terran at Phantasialand, they're building Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. VelociCoaster features 2 launches, max speed 70 miles per hour, which you hit on the second launch, 4 different inversions, which are an Immelment, dive loop, stall, and what they are calling the Mosasaurus Roll, which is basically a heartline roll. But I think Mosasaurus Roll sounds cooler, so I'm going to be referring to it as that. Our height is 155 feet, that is with the top hat, and it drops you down at an 80-degree angle. So not quite vertical, but certainly steep enough that it gets the job done. Now, where can you find this ride? VelociCoaster was squeezed in next to the Discovery Center in the Jurassic Park section of Islands of Adventure. What is incredible about this ride is that they did not remove any attractions for this ride. You had a little Triceratops encounter, but mostly what they were taking out was trees. They squeezed the first half of the ride next to the Discovery Center and Pterodon flyers, and then the second half of the ride passes over a pedestrian bridge. What's so great about this is that the roller coaster rides well, but it also looks fantastic. Of course, Universal is going to theme their attractions well, but what I mean is, aesthetically, in the skyline, and overall presentation, the ride is pleasing to look at. It is one of the first rides you will see when you enter Islands of Adventure and you're looking across the lagoon. And then when you're actually walking through Jurassic Park, you can identify the ride because of this massive raptor paddock that they've built up. It looks straight out of Jurassic World, which, I mean, was kind of the point. Now, in order to actually enter this ride, you actually have to go past the Jurassic Park Discovery Center, almost right before you get to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And what's crazy about this is that when you're actually walking up to the attraction, you'll get really close to some of these sections of roller coaster track going right over your head or directly to the side of you. It absolutely gets you psyched for what you're about to experience. Now, before we dive into the layout, let's start with the queue. And this is a very impressive line. This is one that you almost don't mind waiting in because there's a lot of really cool stuff to look at. As soon as you see that ride entrance, you're immediately greeted with that Jurassic World aesthetic. Everything in this ride uses those classic Jurassic World colors. You know what I'm talking about, the grays, the blues, and architecturally looks very modern, almost military-esque. You can immediately tell that these walls were designed to hold creatures that are very dangerous, and you're gonna encounter some of them very soon. Now, if you ride this when the line is long, the extended queue is off to the left. It'll weave next to the Mosasaurus Roll, but if you happen to go when you just stick in the main queue, it is all interior, and the first set piece you're greeted with is what I call a bouquet of raptors. There are 4 statues made to look like the 4 main raptors from Jurassic World, which are Blue, Charlie, Echo, and Delta. Behind them, you'll see the top hat of VelociCoaster and a train going over. But in my opinion, what makes this area work so well is the lights and the sound. You'll hear them playing different themes within the Jurassic World soundtrack, and the overhead lights are constantly changing colors and doing different patterns, going between oranges, reds, blues, almost forming these hexagon-like shapes. And just the way the light touches the statues is really, really cool. This is also where you'll first hear from Mr. Dino DNA himself. He's there in the queue to kind of set the stage about what this ride is. As you move away from the Raptors, you'll next see the tunnel for the second launch. They have these tall, clear window panes that you can see the train flying past you as riders hit 70 miles per hour. But what's neat about this is that they've programmed different raptors to run past and chase the train after it launches. And there's actually a few different sequences here, so you'll have to ride multiple times because if you just keep on watching the train launch, you'll get different variations of the raptors following the train and how they interact with each other. It's really, really cool. Now next up we have a small little corridor featuring some Easter egg theming. You'll notice a book by Dr. Ian Malcolm. You'll see a model of the VelociCoaster car. And this is also where you'll hear from your first real Jurassic World character, and that is Dr. Wu. He's the one that really introduces that, yeah, you're about to go and meet these raptors, see what they're all about, that kind of thing. But he's not going to go too in depth because the real pre-show comes with Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard's characters right before you board, and I'm going to get to that in a second. After you hear what Dr. Wu has to say, you are literally going to go face to face with the Velociraptors, specifically Echo and Delta. This is really cool what Universal's done. Remember those raptor muzzles from the movie? Well, they have 4 of them. 2 of them are empty. Where did they go? It's such a simple storytelling technique how you see there are 2 raptors encaged, 2 of them are gone. Was it to save money? I mean, yeah, but hey, it's kind of fun where you're like, oh, well, there are they, but that means some have gotten out. But focusing on the actual raptors that are there, these are very impressive animatronics. I was fully convinced that there was a full raptor on the other side of those doors. You'll see their eyes moving, their mouth twitching, their nostrils flaring. When they breathe, you can feel the air. And as if that wasn't cool enough, you can tell that those raptors don't want to be there because they will physically shake the whole thing as they're trying to get out. That is ridiculous. I don't know how much those animatronics cost, but they are so lifelike. I couldn't believe it. After you've met the raptors, you're going to be greeted with your lockers. Now this is cool because Universal has really perfected the locker system here. They have taken every complaint that they have with Hulk and they have fixed it. How do you prevent loose articles from flying off on roller coasters but still allow guests to have their phones in line? You allow them to keep their personal items with them until you're about to board. You put your items in a small locker, which are free. If you have a larger backpack, you actually will put that outside the entrance in the Discovery Center. They have larger lockers there. But things like phone, wallet, and keys, you can have those with you at all times. Use your park ticket to open a locker. And after you ride, when you go back to the locker area, you are now on the other side. It is a double-sided locker system. You'll probably be a little turned around after you see it. You have to kind of get your bearings, realize where you are, where your lockers are. So be sure to remember your number. They also have a little dinosaur icon associated with each section of the lockers. So you could be like, okay, yeah, I'm Triceratops, so I'm going to look for the Triceratops after I get off the ride. It's really a brilliant system. I first saw it at Arthur at Europa Park, and I'm glad that it's made its way over to America, and I hope other parks install something like this soon. Once your items are in the locker, you'll wait in a small area where you can see some really cool different posters advertising some of the different things within Jurassic World, and then you actually go through your metal detectors. So yes, everything that is in your pockets should be put in that locker. Now because of that, I do not have footage of the next section of the queue because naturally I didn't bring the camera past the metal detectors. So I'll do my best to describe the pre-show and the station because I won't be able to physically show you. After you pass through the metal detectors, you'll go up a set of stairs and there's this big giant screen where Bryce Dallas Howard's character, Claire Daring, is telling you about how you're about to ride VelociCoaster. She then radios in Chris Pratt's character, Owen Grady, who's very cynical about the whole thing. As you can imagine, Claire's like, yeah, this is our newest attraction at Jurassic World, like this is so great, we put a roller coaster in a raptor paddock. And Chris Pratt's like, you're a moron, you should get out of line now, this is stupid. It's really funny, I love their chemistry, it's great banter, it's honestly one of my favorite pre-shows I've seen. As you're watching the pre-show, the line keeps moving, so if you want to see the entire pre-show from start to finish, you honestly might have to ride more than once. From the start of when you enter the queue, not including the extended queue, to when you actually board, I'd say it takes about maybe 25 minutes. When I waited through the extended queue, I still think I only waited maybe 45 minutes. Now what's cool about the VelociCoaster station is that they have these giant glass windows, very much in the style of that scene in Jurassic World when they're looking out at the Indominus Rex from that little booth. You can see the rock work, the ride going. It's really, really cool. It gets you totally pumped up. A couple times when I rode, I was able to request a specific row for VelociCoaster, but other times I was not. If you can though, I highly, highly recommend the front row and the back row. Now that I've had the chance to do both, I do think I prefer the back, but front is really, really awesome too. These are also really comfy trains. These are the same style trains as Terran and also what Pantheon has. It's a super comfortable lap bar. There's no seat belts. They've even added grab handles to the lap bar for you to hold on to. And it's just a really sleek train design. It's kind of in that same style as what they did with the new Hulk trains. I know at first when they said, oh yeah, we're theming a roller coaster to VelociCoaster, it's like, well, is the train going to look like a raptor? Well, no, because the theme for this ride is that you are going through a raptor paddock. So this is a vehicle designed to keep you safe from the raptors. It's a really clever design that literally the theme for this ride is that it is a ride. It's perfect. So let's get into this ride experience. You roll out of the station, you take a left-hand turn, and you stop. You are in the same raptor paddock that Owen Grady was in during his pre-show. And when he was in there, there were guards kind of tasing the raptors. The raptors are trying to get out, and you see these same raptors. These are not animatronics. These are screens behind bars. The whole cage is shaking. You hear Owen Grady's voice saying, "Don't say I didn't warn you." There's smoke, and you can feel that you are about to launch. There's some really cool lighting and sound effects, and then you take off. Now, this is not a crazy forceful launch. However, the launch track section is not that long. They only had so much space to work with for the first half of this ride, so they do get you up to speed fairly quickly. For this section, I recommend sitting on the left side because you pass really close to a waterfall. If you reach your hand straight out, you could probably feel some mist. And immediately, first element out is an Immelment. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the video that this ride had lots of surprises for me. By far the biggest one was that there was airtime in places where I didn't expect there to be airtime. When you're sitting in the back coming out of this Immelment, you get ejector airtime. Yes, ejector airtime coming out of an inversion. When you exit this inversion, you dive into rockwork. And let me tell you, the near misses on VelociCoaster are absolutely insane. When we talked to the designers of VelociCoaster, at times they said you were inches away from the clearance requirements. It messes with your mind. You see it coming. You feel like you have to put your hands down or else you're going to hit it. Next element after that is a dive loop. If you're in the back, you get pulled through this. If you're in the front, you kind of stall out right before you dive. You hit a twisted airtime moment. This is some great ejector airtime right here. Any airtime you experience on VelociCoaster is ejector airtime, which is actually why I believe this has the best airtime on a roller coaster in Florida. This twisted hill passes over rockwork. You go to the left, pass through the rocks, and now you're going to get really close to some of these raptors. There are 4 raptor statues in this paddock. They do not move, but they don't need to move. You get so close to them and you're going fast enough. If your hands are up, you feel like you could reach out and whack one of these dudes. You hear them screeching and snarling at you. It is so cool. Again, the near misses on VelociCoaster are insane. You'll hit an overbank turn, encounter the other 2 raptors, pass over some rockwork again, and you hit your second launch. I would definitely compare this launch to the second launch on Terran if you have ridden that. You're going fast already, but this is a booster. It's at this point that you hit 70 miles per hour and shoot up to your top hat. If you're in the front, you get ejected, hitting the peak of this hill. If you're in the back, you're going to get ejected going over the drop. This top hat delivers in every single possible way. It's an amazing view up there, but you aren't going to have too much time to take it in because you're plunging down at 80 degrees, twisting at the bottom, really close to the ground, and into your third inversion, which is a stall. Now, before riding, I had the expectation that the stall was going to be one of the highlight moments of the ride, but the crazy thing is, it's not. This layout is so good, so insane, that the stall is honestly one of the elements I always forget about. It's a really strong moment, but that being said, I have experienced better stalls out there. This one is not as whippy as you're entering or exiting it. It's also not as drawn out, so I think that the stall on Pantheon will actually be better than this one. That's not to say that this is a bad element. There's no point on VelociCoaster that is bad. I just didn't think that the stall was as standout as some of the other moments. Another moment that surprised me is the wave turn coming up. It's kind of this wall stall where you're hanging 90 degrees, and yeah, you get ejector airtime on this. It's only for a second, but it is sweet. Following that is an outside ejector airtime hill. You're on the inside of this curve. You flip over to the left. That's a really whippy moment. You are thrown to the side and then twisted back to the right. Once again, low to the ground, cutting up next to this bridge. You have a smaller overbank turn, and here's where the real crazy part comes. I mean, it's all crazy, but this ride has a killer finale. You have a small ejector pop and then the Mosasaurus Roll. My gosh, what is wrong with this element? I've never experienced an inversion like this before. The Mosasaurus Roll might be one of the greatest moments on any roller coaster, period. Not only are you extremely close to the water, but just the way it twists you I don't know how to describe it. Like, you start to rotate and then it just rapidly whips you, flipping you upside down and back over. The first time I rode VelociCoaster, that was the single moment on the ride that had me actually shocked, just because I had no idea what to expect. But as great as that moment is, it's not like VelociCoaster is immediately over after that. There's one more rapid fire twist before you hit the brake run, and this is not a moment that should be overshadowed. It's an extremely fast-paced turn, really whippy. It throws you into the brakes. This ride is non-stop, crazy from start to finish. I know when this ride was testing, people were wondering if that first half was gonna be slow. Trust me, it's not. No part of this ride feels slow. The pacing is impeccable. I loved every second of VelociCoaster. Is it one of the best roller coasters in the world? Yes, it is. Is it in my top 15? Yes, it is. Where specifically, I'm still working on that, but now that I've ridden 750 roller coasters, to say that this is in my top 15, we're talking about the top 1%. That tells you how good this ride is. And I think really at the core, what makes this ride work so well is that it is the thrills and the theming perfectly combined. It's rare that you have a roller coaster like that. I mean, people always look at something like Terran, pointing out how it has great theming, which it does. But Terran is not a story-driven attraction. VelociCoaster tells a story. From the second you enter the queue until you ride, you are fully immersed in Jurassic World, and it doesn't stop when you're actually on the ride. Yeah, the second half doesn't have exactly a lot of theming, but doesn't really need it. The fact that you are in a raptor paddock for the first half of the ride, flying past all these near misses and theming elements, that is incredibly impressive to pull off. The ride is intense, but it's not too intense. Every visitor of Universal should be able to experience this attraction. It's going to be intimidating for some people, but it'll probably be the most thrilling roller coaster many of these guests will ever ride. When we were there watching everyone get off VelociCoaster, everyone was in a great mood. I haven't heard a single person who's ridden this attraction get off and say, I didn't really like it, or I was disappointed. The fact that you could have a ride this good that meets and exceeds expectations that were already really high is a phenomenal achievement. It should be illegal to give this ride anything less than a 10 out of 10. The only thing I can say is that you have to come to Universal and ride this ride. So I want to hear from you guys. What do you think of Jurassic World VelociCoaster? If you've had the chance to experience it, or if this is a ride that you're planning on going out to ride, let me know if this review helped you. And if you're new to the channel, I'd love if you could subscribe. We do coaster reviews from rides all across the world. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time.